What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to share 3 weapons that I feel are really underrated within Warzone. These are weapons that I almost never see people using, and I do feel they have a lot of potential in their own way. Now, to be clear, I'm in no way claiming that these guns are better than the meta guns that you see out there, like the M4s or the M13s and the Grouse, for instance. But these are just 3 guns that I'd encourage you guys to try out, because each of them is great in their own way. Now, I also want to mention that a lot of the gameplay you're going to see today is within Plunder, and this is just because it's much easier to test out how different setups will perform against real enemies that are using armor. So even though you're seeing Plunder gameplay, most of what I'm talking about will apply just as well for the regular Battle Royale modes. So jumping right into it, let's get into the first gun that I wanted to share with you guys today, and this is the MG34 LMG. Now, for those that didn't know, this LMG actually got a pretty big secret buff in the most recent update, where the open bolt delay was significantly reduced. Before last week's patch with this LMG, when you pulled the trigger, there would be a delay that lasted over 300 milliseconds before the gun would actually go off, which really held this LMG back significantly. Now that delay has almost been eliminated. There is still a very slight delay with it, but it's far more manageable than it was before. And the reason I have it on this list of underrated guns now is it is the fastest killing base full auto gun in the entire game. This thing has an insane rate of fire combined with a really good damage profile and an excellent range profile to top all that off. So this thing just straight up melts people in a face-to-face gunfight, especially if you're already aiming down sight. There's almost nothing that can compete with this thing when it comes to just raw killing power. Now, having said that, it does have some pretty big downsides still, and it's one of the reasons that you don't see it as a meta gun. First up, it's an LMG, so it's slow, it's clunky, you typically have to stack up on attachments that help with your aim down sight time, just so you can compete in those face-to-face situations. And on top of this, this gun has a really high rate of fire, so it burns through magazines relatively quickly, and it comes with a slow reload time. So it's not really a great all-around sort of a gun, but for the right playstyle, if you're playing a little bit more defensively and trying to pick people off at ranges, this thing just melts through armor and people really quickly. So getting into an example build that I made here, with this one, I'm using the blowtorch variant simply because the iron sights are so much better than the base iron sights. I hate the iron sights on the regular MG34. And this allows me to go without an optic on this setup, which is great because it does require a lot of other attachments. First up, we do have the monolithic suppressor on here, just because in Warzone it is very important to stay off the radar. Next, we've got the tac laser, and this is mainly to help with our aim down sight time, but it also helps with that aiming stability so we can stay on target on those people at those mid ranges where we want to be fighting. After that, we've got the stock that helps with our aim down sight time, because again, we really need as much help as we can get here. So that combined with the tac laser really helps this gun out a lot. Then we do have the 100 round belt magazine on this, just because the standard 50 round mag you burn through way too quickly with this super high fire rate, and therefore that's going to help you quite a bit. And then finally we have sleight of hand, just because your standard reload time is painfully slow. Now, of course, this is just an example class setup. It's the one I'm using in the gameplay. You can mix and match things to your liking, but I have found that if I am using the MG34, this is the setup that suits my playstyle pretty well. So that's the first gun that I feel is pretty underrated, especially after last week's update within Warzone. However, the next one is going to be quite a bit different. This one's much more for mobility. This is the Striker 45 with the hollow point rounds. When you use the hollow point rounds, you get a really nice 2-round burst that is extremely accurate, and it deals a lot of damage and has an excellent range profile for an SMG. On top of this, your headshot multiplier is excellent. You're going to be dealing up to 77 damage per headshot. And keep in mind, with that 2-round burst, if you land both of those shots to the head, which is very reasonable in most situations where you should be using this gun, you're going to be dealing 154 damage pretty much instantly. And this means against armored enemies, especially if you're focusing and making sure you're landing some of those headshots, you're going to be putting people down extremely quickly. With no armor, you put an enemy down in what feels like one shot, just because that burst goes out so fast. So you're going to be dropping those people really quickly, but even when they start to have armor equipped, it's only going to take you a few bursts to put somebody down. Combine that with the fact that this gets SMG mobility, so you're super fast, super mobile with it. You can strafe side to side really quickly as well. It snaps onto target really quickly, and it's also got insane range values where you can really be putting people down quickly, even at mid to long range. You'll actually surprise yourself at how effective this is at longer ranges. This gun is just excellent within Warzone. However, there is one massive downside, and it's the only thing holding this back from being one of the top guns in Warzone. This is its tiny magazine capacity. You only get 12 rounds per magazine, and therefore, if you are dealing with multiple enemies, or if you're missing shots consistently, you can really screw yourself over because you'll get caught in the middle of a reload, and that's when the enemy gets the advantage over you. Now, to be clear, if you aren't missing your shots, it's only going to take you a few bursts, so you usually won't even use an entire magazine to kill an enemy if you're accurate. But that's assuming a perfect situation, and in reality, we're not always going to get perfect situations, so sometimes you will get caught reloading. So that's why this gun is quite specialized. It really requires you to be precise and hit those shots, and it's also not great if you're going to be dealing with multiple enemies at once. But we can mitigate this a little bit by using sleight of hand. So let's hop into my example class setup and the setup you've been watching in the gameplay. With this, like I said, we've got sleight of hand on there, and you can reload this gun very, very quickly with sleight of hand. So really, all it takes is pausing behind cover for a brief moment to get a reload in, and then you're back in the fight and dealing a ton of damage towards your enemy. But alongside that, we've once again got the monolithic suppressor, we've got the 400mm barrel, which really increases our ranges nicely, and helps us stay very accurate with those 2 bullets in a burst. Next, of course, we've got the hollow point rounds. That does count as one of your attachments for this. And then finally, we've got the FTAC G5 EXO rear grip, which is kind of like the stipple grip. It helps with your aim down sight time and your sprint out time. So while this may not be the most versatile gun out there, it is excellent as a specialized sort of a weapon for those players that like to be mobile yet still precise. But with that, we have one last gun I want to share in today's video, and this is a gun that I also feel is quite underrated. This is the brand new Mark 9 Bruin. And one of the biggest reasons for this is we can create sort of a hybrid AR LMG build. And this is a role that just works really well within Warzone. You can stretch it out to really long ranges effectively, but with the right attachment setup, you can really eliminate a lot of the downsides of using an LMG, and that's just excellent. I've been using this a decent amount within Battle Royale and finding a good amount of success with it as well. Some of the upsides to this, it's got an excellent DPS value. It's actually the same as the PKM, so it deals a lot of damage in a short period of time, and it's got a great time to kill against enemies that have armor. And on top of that, its recoil is very, very manageable, so you can pick people off at longer ranges just fine with this, and it's got amazing range properties. The only downsides on this compared to some of the assault rifles out there is it does have slower handling and mobility, but we can make up for a lot of that with our attachments. So hopping into an example class setup here. First up, we have a tactical suppressor on this build. I would be using monolithic, but I just haven't quite unlocked it yet because this LMG is still fairly new. So ideally, I would have a monolithic suppressor on there. But on top of that, we do have an optic. I'm just using the Cronin Mini Reflex on here. This is actually basically the glitch variant. I've only changed out a couple attachments. We've also got the skeleton stock, which helps a bit with our aim down sight time and our aim down sight stray speed, which is nice. Then we've got the stippled grip tape, which again, that's going to help with our aim down sight time and bring this more into an assault rifle hybrid role. And finally, the thing that really tops this off and sets this apart from the PKM in Warzone, in my opinion, is the 60 round magazine. Now, 60 rounds is way more than enough within Warzone, even if you're dealing with multiple enemies. And you get a very reasonable reload time with this as well, because if you're not using the 60 round mag, you have a very, very slow reload time with the 100 round mag. And that's just completely unnecessary. Additionally, with this 60 round mag, it just helps in so many other areas like your mobility and your handling to bring this more in line with what you'd expect to see with an assault rifle LMG hybrid. And this is why this particular setup here is just excellent for Warzone. It hits all the right upsides, and with the right attachments, you mitigate those downsides really well. And I feel very comfortable playing Warzone with this gun. If anything, I would say the other builds that I've shared today are really specialized. This one is quite versatile, and it could actually end up being one of the meta guns. I still don't think it's quite as good as the Grouse or the M4s out there. But out of these 3 guns that I've shared today, if you're going to try just one of them, try this one. This one is awesome. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for 3 guns that I just wanted to share with you guys today that I just don't see anybody using within Warzone that I feel actually have a lot of potential, and I'm going to be messing around with them a little bit when I get bored of just using the same old meta weapons over and over again. Of course, I'm interested in hearing in the comment section below, are there any other guns that you really like using and you feel are really underrated that you almost never see other people using within Warzone? Just let me know which guns those are in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.